Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Braja Janarangana Yashodanandana Braja Janarangana Yashodanandana Braja Janarangana Yashodanandana Braja Janarangana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Jagana Jaya Jagana Jaya Baladev Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Radha Madhav ki.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible till the back? Hare Krishna. Mataji, can you also speak in the mic so that we are sure that you are audible to the back?
Hare Krishna, everybody.
So it's a matter of great honor, privilege, and good fortune that we have Her Grace Aruddha Mataji with us. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. For some of us may be backbenchers in the school, and when we book movie tickets, when we choosing the back seats, but for a class like this, we should occupy all the front seats actually. So I request devotees at the back to come in the front. Suhasya Jagannath Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Please come in front. You'll have a more mercy and impact from the front.
Besides, I'm a vegetarian.
So I'd like to, with Mataji's permission, I'd like to introduce Mataji. So Aruddha Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Mataji, you can come in the front. We have a couple of chairs. It's visible? Okay. So Aruddha Devi Dasi, Mataji married Anant Rupa Das and moved to the US. Together they started a temple in Boise. How do you pronounce that, Mataji? Boise, United States. In 1986, as a small weekly program in their home. So in 1986, Mataji and Prabhuji started a small house program in Boise. 30 years later, there is a beautiful ISKCON temple for Shri Radha Banke Bihari. Haribol. Aruddha Mataji homeschooled her two sons, Radhika Raman and Gopal Hari, by mainly using the Srimad Bhagavatam, translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Both her sons completed their PhDs from Oxford University at the age of 21. This experience gave her the conviction. Now, this is very important. We may be very enamored by 21-year-olds obtaining PhDs from Oxford. It's no ordinary feat. But what Mataji became convinced about. So this experience gave her the conviction that Srimad Bhagavatam can give a child everything he or she needs to become a well-rounded devotee and a member of society. When her children graduated early, Mataji explained that is not the goal. Rather, for her, it reinforced that through learning from the Srimad Bhagavatam, children develop a higher capacity to absorb, and complex subjects and principles are assimilated with ease. So essentially, this means that when children study Srimad Bhagavatam, they develop a higher capacity and they develop a higher capacity to absorb complex subjects and principles, and they can assimilate them with ease. Aruddha Mataji is the author of Homeschooling Krishna's Children, which is published by the BBT. This book provides a complete guide to Krishna conscious parenting. With the help of a team of parents from around the world, she has been publishing Srimad Bhagavatam, a comprehensive guide for young readers. Now, a total of 7 cantos are available, as you can see on my right. Her team creates engaging study content to guide children, parents, and teachers to study Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam chapter by chapter in a delightful way. Now, at the age of 71, she is traveling the world to share her wisdom and experience. She is hopeful that parents will see the value in giving their children the strongest foundation based in bhakti principles. So, once again, welcoming Mataji by loudly chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Very happy to be in ISKCON Chennai. I never thought that one day I'll be here, actually. So, and I'm really so impressed. I've already been here like 2 days, and I'm completely fallen over with this community. The deities in the temple, they just completely capture our hearts, and what to speak of the devotees. I've been having so much nice hospitality and reception, and just the love and the warmth and the affection that's given by these devotees. I have no words to describe. Okay. And I've been most impressed by the way this community especially values education. And when I saw this big building for value education, I said, wow, this is it, So really happy. And then, of course, I heard a lot of things. And I want to thank um, Sukriti Mataji, who I first contacted many years ago. And this led to me coming here, actually, my contact with her. And when I come here, I found out all kinds of amazing things about her. And especially, she's been the pioneer of an online Gita course and how she's affecting so many people's lives. And I was very impressed. I want to also thank Veer Gaur Prabhu for, doing a lot of things to make my stay comfortable, as well as Brajabhumi Mataji, who's been cooking like a feast every day with all the diet restrictions I have. So thank you, all of you. Thank you for your warm welcome. So let's get on with the seminar. So I'm here to share with you a seminar on how to raise children, basically. Okay. So this seminar is divided into 3 parts. So the first is based on that ISKCON motto. Purity is the force, books are the basis, and preaching is the essence, right? So, so this will be first, purity is the force, and you see these 3 principles are also applicable to adults. When we are trying to become devotees, we have to follow these 3 things, isn't it? The same thing applies for children. So purity is a force is something we do it for ourselves to purify our own hearts. And Prabhupada has given us a process by which we follow. The morning program, prasadam, and good association, deity worship, all that. And of course, there are things that we should avoid that I'm also going to talk about. I'm also going to talk about internet, social media, and all the problems that's coming from it. So that's the first part. And second part, books are the basis. This is really the essence of my whole seminar. Books are the basis. Because in my experience, I've seen that with the way the times are changing, just you won't believe it, but in America, in the schools, The biggest problem only 20 years ago, can you guess what it was? 20 years ago, you probably won't be able to guess, is chewing gum. Children used to chew gum and they would stick it under their desk. That was the biggest problem in schools 20 years ago. Now, what is the biggest problem? This you can guess. Yeah, besides that, even what else? Violence, drugs, right? And what to speak of, other problems, sexual association and all that. So it's becoming a huge problem. So you see how quickly the times are changing. And as Kali Yuga is going, things are going to change even faster. Do you realize? It's going to actually change faster. So many people come and tell me that why, we never did all that, and we didn't, I didn't homeschool my children. I still came out okay. Well, times are very different, What environment that we had to face was very, very much nicer than what we children have to face today. And frankly, it's not fair on them, isn't it? They're going to school for 8 hours a day. They're learning something totally different from what we as devotees tell them. And then we are saying, no, no, you do like this. So it's a little bit difficult for them, right? So these are some of the things. So books at the basis means feeding the intelligence. You see, everywhere I go, I travel everywhere, all over the world. Everywhere, this is a problem where parents, teachers tell me, I don't know what happens, just that age, and it's getting now younger now. It used to be like 15, the problem started. Now it's coming to like 11, 10, like that, 10, 11 years old. Something changes. They just suddenly want to drop everything, all that they have learned, all that we have labored to work with them, for them to become good devotees. They just want to give it up and just walk away with it. you know so something is happening where we need to hold them. We need to give them that faith, and that comes through reading Shastra. So the point is that sometimes we connect Shastra with just adults. We need to study Shastra, and it is important. But we forget about our children, that our children also need to study Srila Prabhupada's books. And actually, Prabhupada wanted that very much so, right? So, and that will hold them, that will sustain them to the point when the intelligence is fed and they get answers to their questions, then we can expect that they are going to be more stable, right? So the third part is preaching is the essence, which means sharing Krishna with others. Just like for us, we are part of Lord Chaitanya's movement, right? Missionary movement. And when we participate in that, we get his mercy, right? So families that participate in that missionary spirit, they get Lord Chaitanya's mercy, right? Which means families means not only parents, but children also. And there's a lot of benefits from engaging children in preaching activities. In America, there's a community called the Mormons. In their religion, it's required for 2 years, young people, they go out away from the country and to another country, and they have to engage in preaching. They're trained like that. So what I'm saying, because they realize that only when you give Krishna to others is your own faith solidified, right? If you've ever given a class sitting here, on the Vyasa, you know how well you need to know the subject, left, right, up and down, right? Because you don't know what kind of challenges will come, what's people going to ask you, right? So you know your subject really well. The same thing happens with children. When children have to present Krishna conscious philosophies to the other, their own understanding of philosophy, of Krishna consciousness becomes very strong, it's become stronger. What to speak of being able to meet challenges, and what to speak of public speaking, and communication skills, all that is automatically. Prabhupada gave us a process in which one can raise a completely wholesome child. And just with all the skills you can imagine, and I'm going to show you how. Like, we really don't need to go and find and search outside different methods by which we can augment our children's, skills. It's all in Srila Prabhupada's process. We just have to pick it up. So that's the third part, where we talk about how we can engage our children in these preaching activities. So let's go on. So this is a very nice quote. I thought I'll just read it out to you. If we train children by developing and encouraging their propensity to love Krishna, then we shall be successful in educating them to the topmost standard. Then they shall happily agree to do whatever you ask them. So, Prabhupada, I used to think that, okay, if I have to raise my children as devotees, there's this material side that I have to give them, and then there's this spiritual side. But really, what Prabhupada is saying, when we raise them as devotees, that is the topmost education. You see, because everything material comes from spiritual, it's not the other way around. In fact, all the demigods are waiting with folded hands at the door of a devotee, asking them to accept all their qualities. Because that's what we want to see in our children, right? Qualities that the demigods have, right? Wealth, beauty, scholarship, all these things, right? So this is what we want to see in our children. But the demigods themselves are waiting for the devotee to accept them, right? So which means that when we raise our children as devotees, it is the topmost education. And again, I'm going to try to show you that. Hmm? Because a lot of the fears of parents not giving their children enough Krishna consciousness is that they need to fit into the school. Everything is so different out there. So if they become too much of a devotee, how are they going to fit in? Is it really practical? But actually, you'll find out that actually is very practical. Okay, so we'll show you that very soon. So this is a little bit about Prabhupada's vision for our children, and then a little bit about my own experience, my daily schedule, what I did when I educated my children. Okay, so Prabhupada's instructions. There's so much out there that Prabhupada has said. It's unbelievable. When I started writing this pink book, on parenting and homeschooling, I was shocked when I started doing my research, how much Srila Prabhupada has spoken about the way we can raise our children. He's given direction on practically everything. You name it, how to do japa, everything is there in Srila Prabhupada. But one of the things that I realized, that I understood, that Prabhupada stressed for our children, the reason why Prabhupada opened Gurukulas, as you know, Prabhupada started out with opening for the first Gurukula, which was in Dallas, Texas. The reason was because he wanted children to develop good character. He found that so very important. And you can see in the world that's exactly lacking, right? It's easier actually to get a job than get somebody with good character, right? It's becoming practically impossible. So, and where does good character come from? Where does it come? It's from Krishna consciousness. It's coming from chanting and reading and doing all these devotional process. That's where character comes from. Why? Because it purifies the heart. There's nothing that will purify the heart to the extent that Krishna consciousness will. Hmm? So it's a very, very powerful process, and we see that in Shastra. And this is what Krishna gets attracted with. Krishna is not so attracted in hearing about his glories, actually. you know, in the section of the Atmaram verse, when he was Sarvabhauma, gave so many explanations, and he's all that, and he's not interested. What is it interested in? Why is he considered so merciful? Because he's so attracted to the qualities of his devotees. Hmm? Arjuna was his best friend, but his heart reached out to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Why? Because of his exalted qualities. Krishna is very, very attracted. And you see, he even told Uddhava that you're so dear to me. You're even more dear to me than myself, that I'm for myself. And why? Because Krishna appreciates the beautiful qualities of his devotees, right? And this is the way of reaching Krishna's heart. This is the way how we can, get back to Godhead, is by developing these beautiful qualities, right? So Prabhupada said, if you don't have good character, it's like decorations on a dead body, you know. Yeah, that's what he said. I was in Pune recently, and I flew there, and then when I was going to the next place into Delhi, then to my surprise at the airport, the car cannot go to see you off at the airport, because they require everybody, even if you coming from a city and you land there in Pune, then you can't get your private car to come and pick you up, or even to go to the parking lot and you go there like they have in Delhi, right? You really have to get a something, a bus, and you go to the mall, and from the mall your private car comes, or you take a cab. Imagine old people getting on the bus to go to the mall to get a cab. It's just crazy, right? And I found out the reason why is because all these politicians have investment in the mall. Can you imagine putting so much trouble? This is, Prabhupada said, people like that, politicians like that, very soon they become very haggard. You see their face, within a few years, they become very haggard. Hmm. Because of all this corruption and this bad qualities that they develop, right? We don't want to. So Prabhupada said these children are not ordinary children. He wanted to see them as leaders. But you cannot become leaders unless you have good character, right? And that was very dear to Srila Prabhupada. Among the three things that Srila Prabhupada stressed, okay, that was book distribution, deity worship, and Gurukula. It was very high on his list because he wanted to, these children, he wanted to save them. I mean, we go through life making a few devotees. Huh? If you're lucky and if you're really empowered, we can make like 20 devotees. He said these children will make hundreds of devotees because they're getting Krishna from the very, you know. But of course, birth is not the only thing, right? More important than birth is training. We see that in the Shastra, right? Krishna killed his own son because he was bad, you know. So birth is not important as much as our training, and that's why we are doing this. Okay, my little story here is that I moved to America right after my marriage, and we started this temple. And my children, when we moved to Boise, my children were 2 and 4. I have two boys, and when they turned 5, I started thinking about where they're going to go to school, like their parent. And everybody told me private school is better than public school, so I opted for a private school, which are quite expensive. And then I started volunteer time in the school to see what's happening. After all, they allowed that, so I would sit in my kids' classes and watch. And to tell you the truth, I was disappointed both ways, both academically and morally. So academically, I noticed my older son was sitting in a math class. He finished his work 20 minutes earlier. And that can happen to any kid, right? And he's just bored, just sitting around, right? So I realized the schools are meant for the average. Huh? If you're above average, then you're kind of bored. And if you're below average, you're frustrated, right? And then morally also, it's not the best. Everybody doesn't disagree with that. One day, my son came back home and he says, Mother, do you know my teacher spelled God with a small G? That was a big thing for him with a small G. Anyway, there were other problems also, and there was my younger son. He in class, he had a class teacher. His boyfriend would come, and they would just lightly kiss each other. So all these things were going on. And so I was thinking, and then the biggest reason why I didn't like sending them to school is because when they came home, they were very, very tired. They were in a frame of mind where took me a lot. I had to put in a lot of effort to bring them to devotional frame of mind because they were tired. They wanted to play outside. So that was my biggest challenge. I wanted to do Krishna book reading with them, or have them play Mridanga. It was a real effort. So I thought, well, let me see if there's any alternative ways. I had no idea about homeschooling, home education, but I started researching, and I found out that, yeah, home education is a very viable thing in America. There's 3 million people who are homeschooling, very rich families whose wives don't need to work. They can stay at home, right? And you can buy a curriculum for the whole year over there. Just buy it, and then you just do it. So there's facilities there. So I did that, and I said I was really scared to play with my children's life, right? So I thought, okay, I'll do it during summer, and if it works, we'll carry on, because in summer they get 3 months off. Okay, summer holidays. So if it works, I'll continue. Otherwise, we can put them back to school. And you won't believe, in 3 months they finished the entire year's course. I was myself surprised, and they were studying like 2 hours a day. You see? So this used to be the system. 50 years ago in India and in America, the system of education was a tutorial system. This is only 50 years ago. And now we think that if the children are not sentenced to a school behind a desk for 8 hours a day, they cannot be educated, right? Yeah, we are thinking unless they have a big classroom with 30 students or 40 students with one teacher, how can this is the only system? But actually, this was not the system. Tutorial means one teacher with a few students. It is more quality education, one to one. And even today in Cambridge and Oxford, they follow the tutorial system. There's no classrooms there. One to one, maybe. I mean, mostly is one to one. The teacher with the student. And the nice thing about that is they develop very good study skills, because you learn. You're not spoon fed. You have to learn how to come up, to study yourself. And that's the wonderful thing. I mean, literally, I remember my sons, they were books on math, and they would study themselves, because again, there's a way to do that through the study, how to sharpen their intellect. Okay, so I started homeschooling. I said, okay, I never heard of the concept, but I thought, let me try. And then I got dissatisfied with the curriculum. And I said, oh, wait a minute. I want to read Srila Prabhupada's books. I was a new devotee. I hadn't read any of Prabhupada's books either. So I thought, well, the way to read it is to teach them. So I can also benefit from that, right? So I thought, okay, and because there were so many books, I was so amazed. Prabhupada has translated so many books. So I started teaching from them from Srila Prabhupada's books. And that's how my journey in home education started. This seminar is not about getting you all to home educate. Please don't think like that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just giving you a little background of where all this understanding and faith came from, of studying Srila Prabhupada's books. So that it came from this. But you can, no matter what your system of education you're following, this process that I'm going to give you can be applied to any system. Okay. So I was in Madurai just a week ago, and they have a school there, and they've started teaching all these books, Shastra, during the school time. So it's really nice. Anyway, so what I did was in the morning. So this was my schedule for our children, for my children. In the morning when they woke up, we had a morning program. Everybody knows the morning program. I know here the temple is very far away from a lot of you who live somewhere else. So you can do a morning program at home instead of the temple, right? It's okay. Sometimes, this is fine. So you do a morning program, which means morning artik, Mangal artik, and, Narsing Dev mantra, and then Tulsi Puja, Guru Puja. So that can be done at home. That is very, very important, and I'm going to talk about that. So we did that. So it was very hard for them to get up at 4:30. We were running a center, and it took us into late nights, many, many times, festivals and all that. So my morning program with them was later. We had to run it. We had to do the early time because it was a temple, but for them it was a bit later. And then we had a morning program, and then we sat down and studied Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in between, if they're hungry, you give them food and all that. So we studied Srimad Bhagavatam 2 hours a day. And sometimes it would go longer because they wouldn't stop. They wouldn't want to stop. And the reason why is because we had a process of doing it. It was mainly through discussion. you know. And I'll tell you why discussion is such a good process. Plus, of course, doing other things they also did through the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we did that. And then after that, we would go out into the city and do extracurricular activities, preaching activities. Remember, the third part is the preaching. So we would go out, and I would book tables and events ahead of time, and they would go, and we would have book tables sometimes. Sometimes we had prasadam tables. Sometimes we did book distribution. Sometimes we did harinam. So different events. Whatever, when you look at the city calendar, you'll find so many things happening in the city, right? So all you have to do is plan ahead, get tables and all that. So every time we had something, because children, need something to do, right? So the idea is not to isolate the children. That's important, right? We don't isolate them, but we insulate them. In other words, we expose them to the outside world, but in a protected way. That's very important. The protection has to be there. We need protection also. I mean, if we don't have association for a couple of weeks, we feel like, oh my God, I'm losing it, right? So children need the same. They also need, association and all that. So, so they are they're given exposure to the outside world, but in a way that's protected. In others, they were, when you have book tables and you have to talk to people, see how they are. I remember we used to do Harinam every Wednesday in downtown over there. It's a small city, and we did, and when we do a walking Harinam. So we had small books also we gave away. And it was very interesting because it was just evening time, and people would come out of the bars half drunk and start dancing and all that. And that was very interesting for them. I mean, for them to see, okay, this is what life is. It's not like they're not participating in that, but they are watching and observing that this is how people live their life. You see, so there's exposure all the time, but they know, they feel and then you develop, through shastra, they develop compassion for people like that, right? So and when you have book tables, again, they have a chance to present Krishna consciousness to people across the table, talk to them. So there's constant, and children, they need activity, they need fun, they need challenge. So all that becomes satisfied with that, right? And then after that, we even did so much that we would even go and do once a month prison programs. We actually went out to jails, you know, now, you tell me which kid in public school gets a chance to go to jail and learn from there? Which kid gets to go to the prison and go and visit a prison program? Prabhupada has given us so many opportunities. Our children who are raised using, taking advantage of what Srila Prabhupada has given, has worked so hard to give. Imagine, he was pioneered everything. We just take it, right? He started this whole thing. I mean, this children who go to prison, do you think they ever will commit a crime when they see people over there? And plus, what develops in them is appreciation for Lord Chaitanya's mission, right? The compassion when you see these, people who've done different crimes, who are criminals, they're chanting and dancing, wanting books, prashadam. I mean, I remember experiences where we'd feel like, wow, this was Lord Chaitanya. You felt the presence of Lord Chaitanya. Each time we went, it was like, for them, it was, wow, this is Krishna consciousness. You see, this is the life we want to give our children. Every bit of the three things counts. Everything. What Srila Prabhupada has given us is such a wholesome scientific thing that we need all three. We need the personal sadhana, for our purification. We need shastra, because then everything becomes sentimental. If you don't have the philosophy, then things become sentimental. They think, I am a devotee. Why? Because my parents are devotee. They don't identify themselves as devotees, right? On their own right. Yeah. And when the chance comes, they're out of the door, right? So that is the problem. So when we expose them to these things, they realize and they develop that their own identity of who they want to be and how they want to see the world. And the nicest thing is that they develop a certain compassion for others. Naturally, when you reach out to others, when you give out books, you feel compassion. You don't want your children to grow up and thinking that I'm the best person on earth. I'm a devotee. I'm holier than everybody else. No, you want them. We don't follow them, but yet we feel compassion for them. So this is basically what we did. Okay? And this is now we come to our first section, preparing the home. So I thought that before we talk about the positives, let's talk about the things that we should avoid. It's more interesting, isn't it? It's more challenging, right? So one of the things that is a very hot topic now is avoiding screen time and limiting internet. It's a very huge problem. It's one single-handedly is one problem that it seems like pretty hopeless. How to get our children to understand that can be so damaging, right? So yeah. So there's two problems with it. One is the content. So nobody disagrees with how the content of what they are showing out there is a problem, right? It breaks all the four regulative principles. Agreed? no meat eating, illicit sex, all this, it breaks. So as devotees, we are trying so hard to follow these four regulative principles, but at the same time, we are exposing ourselves to watching this. We cannot say that it's not going to affect us because I know all about it. No, they are very, very powerful medium. You know, they've actually banned ads in many countries in Europe for little children because of the effect it has on them, because they cannot really understand what they see. When we see something, we can put some perspective on it, but children take it as reality, you see. So with time, as we watch, we will be affected. Now, people say there's some good shows, some educational shows. What's wrong with that? One parent was telling me very proudly that my child learned reading through this game, a video game. This is how it is. But the thing, they've done research that when you learn from a screen, your retention value is very poor. In other words, to retain what you learn is much, much smaller than if you were to read a book. They've just come out with some new statistics on that. And there's a difference of almost 75%. It's a big problem. So now you see, so even if we are learning from the screen, from the education, our retention is much less. And you can see that, like today, when you watch a movie, the time that is spent in one screen time, is about 15 seconds, and then you have to change that immediately because people cannot handle more than 15 seconds of one scene, right? It used to be like 2 or 3 minutes. You remember, anybody remembers, or older people remember these black and white movies, and you see the scene. One scene would be like 2 3 minutes, and it'd go on, and they'd keep on singing and singing. You say, "Wow, this is so amazing," and all that. Now, if you show my sons, they're professors, and if they show in this to the young people, this is, oh no, we can't handle that. So this is the problem. Besides this, other problems, and the other thing is that even though it could be educational, still it's addictive. So the way it's presented, that's the medium. The way it's presented is very addictive. Just like in America, they say one glass of wine is good for you, but it's good for your heart. But who stops at one glass? No. You go one glass, two glass, pretty soon you're drunk, right? So screen is like that. You watch a little bit, and what happens? You promise yourself, I'm going to watch 15 minutes. The same thing with children. You'd say, I'm going to give this screen to you for 15 minutes. It never, ever happens, right? It's so addictive. I don't know if you've ever heard a small child scream when you take the phone away. Boy, that scream I've never heard before. It's like screeching. It's really painful because it's not even the scream of a hungry child who's looking for mother's milk. It's really bad because that's the nature of this. If you take it away, it's it's too addictive. It's very addictive, right? It's like giving. They've done research, like especially video gaming is so very bad because they've done research that is like giving. It's like a drug addict. It's similar to somebody taking cocaine. Okay, there's a hormone that's released. It's called dopamine, and that creates urgings for more and more cocaine. Right? Video gaming is just like that. You watch a little bit, and it creates these urges for more and more, right? And so that is the problem. In fact, there's a person by the name of Ted who's done a lot of research on this to help parents realize. And he's interviewed these young people, and the things they speak, it's amazing. They say things like, everything evil has been at my door. I wish my parents had not given these phones to me so early in my life. They say things like that. I've tried suicide. I've, harming, self-harming, all types of problems. So the children themselves. I was in Denmark, and there was a young girl who was in the seminar, and she came up to me and she said, "I totally understand what you said." She says, "I'm addicted to my phone, and when my mother tries to take it away from me, I get so angry with her, and I don't know how to control this anger. My intelligence tells me that yes, this is really crazy, this is really bad, I shouldn't have the phone, she's right, but I can't stop myself." So there's young people themselves, they're realizing how harmful it is. Somebody interviewed Steve Jobs, who's the owner of Apple. Now he's dead. And and the reporter interviewed and said, "Oh, your children must be having the latest phones." And you know what he said? They don't even have one. He doesn't even give. He never gave his children phones because he manufactures them. He knows how bad they are. In Silicon Valley, schools, they don't allow for cell phones for their children because their fathers are all working for these companies and they know. So, but they make a fool out of us, don't they? Yeah. 10 years from now, it is predicted that everybody will understand the harmful effects of this, of internet. And then but it's going to be too late for our children. Okay? It's going to be too late. Just like in America, smoking is on the down. So much propaganda has been done against smoking that people have realized, okay, I shouldn't smoke. It's gone down drastically. People are going to realize one day about the harmful effects. So we don't want to make that mistake for our children. So what do you do, right? What do you do? And the other harmful effect, they say that it affects the brain. You know, in the brain, there's neurons which go equally on the left and the right side. So when you give a small child, especially small children whose brains are not totally formed as yet, when you give them these phones, all the neurons go on one side. The brain is permanent. You can reverse that. Okay. I was in where was it? In Pune, in one of the temples there. I went for the seminar and I saw two small children busy with the phone. They were 3 or 4 year olds and they were watching a cartoon. And the mother was inside making a garland for Krishna. So we have to think, what is the point? Another parent had a question about that, what should I have to, I have to do this and that. So many seva I have. My wife has seva. We just give her the laptop. Well, what's the point? Prabhupada said our children are like deities. Just like we take care of deities, we should take care of them, right? I was in Chowpatty and we did a seminar. And you won't believe 50% of the audience was brahmacharis. And I was thinking, what are they doing here? Why are they here? And then I found out the reason why they were here. They were preaching to the grahasthas, right? And they were thinking, and they're thinking, and they were concerned because the parents, excellent devotees, and the children, they didn't even bother to come to the temple. So the parents would come to the temple while the children stayed back at home. And what do you think they would do at home? Chant the holy name? No, they would be on their phones. So they were really concerned what to do, something about these children, you see. So we have to use our intelligence about wherever we go. My formula is that wherever you go, you take your children with you. Don't leave them at home. Children who have no connection with Krishna consciousness, they lose it. Okay. So if you're going to the temple, you take them. If you wherever you're going, just take them with you. It'll become part of your family life. They're not going to question if you do it from the beginning, right? There's one family in Dallas who does that, and children are, and he goes to school, he chants 16 rounds. Such a nice devotee. Mm. So it can be done, and if you do it right. Mm. So this is so what is the solution? We'd never talked about the solution. There, because this is the internet age. Even in schools they require, right? They give, your homework has to be done through the internet. So it's not something you can avoid, right? But there's a way to use it. Mm. You use it for the purpose that is for, right? Just like you'd use a hammer, right? If you have a hammer, it's for hammering a nail. Do you take that hammer everywhere? Do you put it in your pocket? Do you think that I need to carry it around because I'm going to have a relationship with that hammer? It's a very special hammer. It's a beautiful hammer. No, it's a hammer. You use it and you put it aside. So internet has to be used like that. It should not be used for entertainment and browsing. That's where children get into trouble when they are given the freedom to just browse through. In America, I was in Delhi, and one Mataji, she came to me and she was crying, and she says, "My son is addicted to pornography." Pornography. He said, "My son is addicted, and I don't know what to do." And this was in India, and this was a devotee mother. Hmm. So this is a problem. And what to speak of America, right? They have statistics that 22% of people, of children below 10 are addicted. It's a huge problem. Now, remember, children are not looking for this. They are not, they are innocent. They are not looking for these things, but they are curious, right? So if you spend enough time on the internet, if you browse, somehow they've designed it in a way that they will click on certain things. It's just 2 clicks away. And these, they know when children are browsing. Okay, they're very smart. They know when children are browsing, and they will, and they click something wrong, and then they're there. Now, of course, there's softwares you can use to prevent all that, right? You can try that. So that's very important to use those softwares. Make sure, don't say I just trust my children, okay? Because when it comes to this medium, it's very, very difficult, okay? So this is a solution for it. Use it for the purpose, for emailing, for looking up directions. It's valuable. It's a valuable tool, right? But use it for that purpose, not. And of course, you have to set your own example. If you're addicted always to the phone and you don't keep it away when you don't need it, when you come home, put it in a drawer, okay? Put it in a drawer. Because children, and now parents come and ask me that if they're not doing this, what can I do with them? Is there anything to do with them? Like, they don't know how to engage with the children, how to spend time with them. Imagine. There's so many things Srila Prabhupada has given us. There's dramas, festivals, practice for dramas, festivals, book distribution, so many things Prabhupada has given us. Bhakti rickshaws where they can take some active part in it. I know one boy in Boise he was so good with the sound system. He did the whole sound system for the temple. So we need to engage our youth in these things. We need to engage them, because if they're not engaged, then they won't, and they don't feel a part of it, then they will lose it, right? So there's some very nice. So I'm going to do a few more, and then we're going to open it for questions in this first section. So morning program, very important. So this is something, like I said, it purifies the heart. If you cannot do a long one like they do in the temple, do a short one. Do a 10-minute one. You can make it flexible, but never miss a day without doing a morning program, because there's so many benefits. Srila Prabhupada, he said there's no austerities for our children. He said they can eat as much as they like, they can run around as they like, but one austerity he expected is for them to get up in the morning and do a morning program. He always was very particular about that. Prabhupada said that children do what the elders are doing. He said there's no separate program for the children. Just like we, do a morning program and then we, read Shastra. He said children should also do that. The difference is the men go out to work or women go out to work, and the children have to study, in school. But basically, the program is the same, right? So we can make it very enjoyable. Yeah, children have to experience Krishna consciousness in a joyful way. If we cannot give it to them like a punishment. My younger son went to Oxford, and he told me that if I didn't have the Bhaktivedanta manner, I don't know how I would have survived. You know why? Because that institute is the Oxford University, the prestigious Oxford. What is known for? You won't believe it. I'll tell you this incident. One time when my son went there, they have different colleges. Huh? So he was in one college called Queen's College within Oxford. So they had an orientation day where all these young new students would come, and they would be introduced, oriented to all this school. So that day, a few of these students were there, and they sat around an oval table. The provost got up and he started his speech, and he said, "So, uh, drinking is part of our culture, and we will make sure that today drinking is part of your culture." This is an higher institute. This is an institute for higher learning. This is what you get in the world today. This is what we are craving our children to go to, right? How are they going to survive? How do you expect they're going to survive? The two things that are well known in Oxford, one is drinking and party. It's known as a drinking institute and a party institute. And everybody should participate in that, okay? And then what happened after he announced that, he passed everybody glasses of wine. Everybody today, now everybody you drink, and then and they were supposed to toast. My son was sitting there. Mm. Everybody started drinking and toasting, and everybody noticed that this boy is not doing it. So everybody got on his case and pressuring him. Come on, Gopal, you're not going to die. Just one sip, one sip. Are you going to die? Come on, man, come on. So much pressure that he just didn't know what to do. And he's thinking, what should I do? Maybe I should take a sip. Maybe what should I do? He didn't take one. And then right at that time, one boy, he was half drunk by then. He had, remember that part? They say one glass of wine is good for you. He had already drunk like three, four or five glasses by then. He was half drunk, and he said, in his drunken state, he said, "Oh, come on, man, just leave him alone, man." Leave him alone. And the whole pressure died down. And he was okay. So, but he was telling me that what was going on in his mind was, what is my spiritual master going to say if I take a sip? Like, he was already initiated. He wasn't thinking what I'm going to say, what my husband is going to say. He's thinking, what is my spiritual? And this is something that brings out the point here. And I homeschooled him, and we are very close. We have great communication. Everything is there. The reason is because we're going to talk about it. How there comes a time in people's lives where when nothing works, where it's too challenging, where intelligence becomes very rebellious, then nothing works except divine association, divine power, we call it. And that's divine power means power of Krishna and his devotees. When everything else fails, if you're wondering why my children are not showing interest and you're worried, or anybody else out there who's worried about, is he going to be okay? Is he going to be in the straight, in the proper, line? Am I going to lose him? Because children, they go with a good intention to college. They actually go with a good intention. They actually feel very grateful to their parents, right? But the problem is that, when they go there, and they for the first time, they're faced with, instead of some sincere goodness, they see depravity, such fallen behavior, then it really is hard for them, it's really hard for them. So in other words, if we want to take the lower tendency and make it into a higher tendency, the lower tendencies that's natural in a child, natural in any young person, right? If you want to bring it to a higher way, the only way is to give them divine association. This is the only way. And I was going to tell you what the acharyas have said about that. Even our acharyas like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and Bhakti Vinod Thakur have actually written about parenting. You know that? So much they've written about parenting. And there will be a time when I can read that to you, a few things, okay? So anyway, so we have to, and that's why you see the morning program is so very important. All these samskaras, okay? All these spiritual samskaras that you give your child, they become very valuable when they move out of the house, okay? Because they purify the heart, okay? They purify the heart. When children are not able to move from the lower to the higher intelligence, when they're not able to take that jump, that plunge, this is when these spiritual samskaras help, okay? That association helps. Okay, eating prasadam. This is, again, very important. We take it for granted, but this is so very important. Because why? Because food affects our consciousness, right? If you've eaten food that's always prasadam, but one day you get weak and you go and eat in a restaurant, how do you feel? You obviously don't feel the same. You know something went wrong, right? It's not the same. So food, just like an artist, he does a nice painting, a beautiful painting of a beautiful scene, you feel nice. But if there's a gross painting, you feel awful, right? Because food affects like that. So what do you do with children? Because there's so much outside food around now, everywhere in schools, and we don't think much of it, right? How do you train your children? Again, Shastra becomes very important, reading Shastra. And we as a family, what we did was whenever we had a party to go to, like office parties, there comes a situation where you have to men, they have their office parties and they have to participate in those parties. In other words, they have to go to a restaurant with other people and eat. And so do our children. They have parties for children, right? Where they have birthday parties. How can you stop them from going? What do you do, right? It feels so unfair. So what we used to do is take two, like for example, for office parties, we would take two big pots. One had pakoras in it and one had rice, vegetable rice. And we'd take that, and that everybody got to eat prasadam, and we'd fill up on that. And children always need reminders. So when you take them, you give them, you remind them why we are devotees, why we eat prasadam. And of course, children love pakoras. They fill up on pakoras anytime, right? And plus, so many people get. So the line that we did was to people was that we do not eat in a kitchen that cooks meat. We don't eat in a kitchen that cooks food, that cooks meat. Otherwise, they'll put all types of vegetarian food in front of you. You say, "Oh, I promise you this is vegetarian. Promise you this is vegetarian." Do you think it's vegetarian? No. There's all types of things in it that you don't know. First of all, the spoons could be coming from a meat pot, or it could be, over there they use meat stock and beef stock and all types of things. And here also, I'm sure. It's not, even in a vegetarian restaurant, there could be so many things, onions, garlic, so many things, right? So if you take that line where you say, we don't eat food that's cooked in a kitchen that cooks meat, that kind of solves the problem. And you stay that line, you don't change it. Like today you eat and tomorrow you don't eat, everybody will laugh at you. You become a laughing stock. But if you stick that line at every time you go and you give that line, people will actually respect you for your beliefs. That's been our experience. Okay. And when you go to a restaurant, you can order a salad, you can order a fruit plate. So many things can be done. Even in India, you can do that, right? You can do things like that. Yeah. One time, my son, he wrote in this book, my older son, he went to this party that he had to go to. And so he called the restaurant ahead of time and told him that for his first course, he'll take a fruit plate. For his second course, it's going to be salad. And third course, it was something else. So he knew there was, they have courses, different courses, 3 courses they were going to have over there. So he named, okay, fruit plate, salad, and one more. Right? I can't remember what it was. So the restaurant already knew that this person is not going to eat anything beyond that. And he says that when they brought the fruit plate, because they feel so sorry for you, they made like a huge, nice fruit plate with mangoes and all the seasonal fruits. When it comes, then everybody looks at, my, wow, this is really healthy, man. I should be like that, you know? And then they want to talk philosophy. Oh, why do you eat like this? How is it that you eat like that? So we should have the strength, you know, and we should have the inner conviction that when we keep to what Prabhupada said, if you just did this one thing of eating prasadam all your life, you go back to Godhead. You eat your life back to Godhead, literally. This is the amount of faith Prabhupada had in this. So we should give our children this faith, and that comes through Shastra. When we read Srila Prabhupada's books, we actually get that faith. Anyway, so this is prasadam, and then good association. So just like we need good association, our children also need good association. So spending too much time on screen is bad association. So that's one bad association that is very hard to circumvent. Do you know children have to face so many authorities in life? Why do the children don't do well today? Because it used to be that parents would be the only authorities for children. The teachers were there, and they were also authorities. And of course, for teachers, Prabhupada had a formula. What kind of teachers? He said, you cannot be a teacher if you smoke and drink. And that's what he said. If you're not doing devotional practices, you cannot be a teacher. Why? Because their character rubs on the children. Do you agree with that? If the teacher is sitting there 8 hours a day in the classroom, what kind of influence that teacher is going to have? Immense influence, right? And nowadays, teachers, the way life is going, the one thing that the teacher does is the teacher goes against the parents. She or he creates an atmosphere that your parents are no good. You don't need to listen to them. You know that? I don't know if you know that. This is a mood now, everywhere, even in India. You don't need to, and the media will cash on it. The media will cash on this sentiment and they will exploit that sentiment. One time, my younger son was going on a very long flight, hours and hours of flight, and he never grew up watching television, huh? But he turned it on. He said, "Let's see what's going on." He wanted to see something. And he turns it on. You know what show was going on? It was a 40-minute show on how stupid your parents are. It's reality. Imagine this is what children are getting. This is the association they're getting. You watch shows like that enough times, you are going to think your parents are stupid. I was walking along the river in my city there one time, and there was a bunch of young people, and all they were making fun of their parents. It's cool. It's something cool to think. It's cool. If you think your parents are stupid, it's actually cool. You walk and parents are there to pick up the children, dad, somebody, and you see the conversation between children and parents. They say, shut up, dad. They speak like that. It's normal, you know. And we are not far behind, okay? In London, among the Indians, terrible problem among the young people. Devotee children from devotee families, they're bringing girlfriends at home. Parents cannot do anything. There was one parent in Melbourne, I was in Australia, and he was crying. He says, my children come, they walk into the house, they don't even look at me. They ignore me. I was in Meadow Road with a family, very nice devotees, excellent devotees. Young children they had, teenage children. The girl, she comes in, and her mother was telling me, and she comes in and she says, "Mom, keep quiet, don't say a word." This is how she greets her mom. And the brother he's addicted to some comedy show, huh? And he thinks the whole life is a comedy. He thinks the parents are very funny. You see, this is all reality. I mean, I'm getting like, this is what I see. There was another parent who said, my daughter went to school and the school was called off because somebody gave some kind of horrible stuff to drink or something. This whole school was shut down. Just like I was in New Jersey, here in America, and this is a doctor. She has a clinic and everything, a doctor, and she has a son. And she gets so many cases of things happening in school today that she just decided that, okay, this is it. She pulled her son out of school and she takes her son to her clinic and she teaches him there because she got so horrified by the cases that would come to her and what people told her. And she's a doctor, she knows, right? I mean, drugs is given so freely among young people, right? Of course, our children will be better educated and all that than the Karmi children. But especially in America, they target Indian children because they have money. You see, it's easy for them to buy drugs, so they target these young Indians, and it's really hard to escape them. So she hears all that, right? They have different bathrooms, and everybody knows this is the bathroom where the drugs are being given. And teachers they don't do a thing over there, okay? It may not be so bad here, okay? I'm just saying that it's not far behind. India is not far behind. The types of things I've heard, happening here, is not far behind. I just want you to know, to be aware, and to be educated about what to expect. When children feel, frustrated and desperate, you understand why they're feeling like that. They're facing a lot of stuff out there. They're facing a lot of stuff. And the problem is that becoming a teenager, entering into adolescent is not an easy thing for them. It's not easy for us, but it's not easy for them themselves, okay? Because you see, what we see in our children, we just see the gross body, right? We see the gross body. This is my children is growing, but we don't see the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and ego. That is also changing. And that's what we don't see. So the subtle body, what happens is the mind becomes, because it's experiencing, these hormones are entering their body, which is new for them. When enter teenager, the sexual hormones enter in their body, and they cannot figure out what's happening to them, right? So they become very emotional and very impulsive, and the intelligence turns into rebellion. But the problem is they themselves cannot understand what's happening to them, and when we accuse them for behaving in a different in a bad way, they clamp down because they themselves don't understand what's happening. So we have to be very, very understanding, and we have to take steps, so they can, again, so that they can turn these lower feelings, lower tendencies into higher tendencies. That's the only thing. Otherwise, it's a no action problem. You cannot do anything. You know, it's a problem that they will go through. There will be scars in their life. It depends whether they are major scars or they are simply scratches. It depends on us. It's our responsibility. It's the parents' responsibility to make them into mere scratches, right? And that's when we understand what they're going through. So in order to turn this lower intelligence into higher intelligence, like I said, they need divine power. Okay. Now, commitment to parents, the commitment and the relationship that we have does help. But only if we are providing good examples. If we are the commitment that they have with us needs to be virtuous. In other words, we have to give examples of practical Krishna consciousness, of our own example of being nice devotees. Now that commitment has a better results, positive results. Just like you see in the Mahabharata, Duryodhan, Karna was committed to who? Duryodhan. So commitment itself is not wonderful. What kind of commitment do we have, right? The commitment has to be virtuous, which means we have to be very Krishna conscious. So when they're committed to us, the result is they themselves become virtuous, right? So that's why the commitment does come in handy, wherein they are able to curb the lower side. But when times become really hard and they're not able to come to the higher level because temptation is too strong, that's why divine power is a must. It's a must. And when Krishna consciousness, because Krishna has a way of purifying the heart that nothing else will purify, nothing else will purify. And that's why among the Krishna consciousness becomes the highest education. I know they have to have a career, they have to do well, they have to establish themselves at good grihastas, responsible grihastas. For that, they need a good job, good study, and all that. But without this core, this spiritual core, everything is useless. See, I will read to you some of the things that Bhakti Siddhanta says. Bhakti Siddhanta has written a lot of information about parenting. And that's in relation with this story of Vatsasur, the demon. Vatsasur was a young calf, very naughty and very mischievous, right? And Krishna killed him. You know the story of how he killed him. So in relationship with Vatsasur, because as you know, every demon in Krishna book is meant for us to purify one anartha, right? One anartha we give up when we talk about one demon. So Vatsasur is the demon by which the juvenile problems can be resolved. By hearing that story, we can resolve the problems in our young teenagers. Okay, so it's very valuable, right? So so Bhakti Siddhanta is saying that there is, yeah. He's saying that Vatsasur maintained a childish, mischievous mentality by which he developed desires for sense gratification and materialism. Vatsasur represents the evils that is present during boyhood, totally susceptible to bad association. In other words, what he's saying is during boyhood or girlhood, their tendency is to go for bad association. The tendency is for sense gratification. Why? Because remember all the changes that's happening in the body, the awareness of the opposite sex and all those things. So there's a lot of hormones that's working against them, right? So this is going to happen. You should expect that they will be attracted towards that. Attracted. Okay. Now, he's saying So he says this in 5 or 6 points in the Harmonious newspaper when he was living in Sridham, Mayapur. That newspaper was bi-weekly. So he had one series on Vatsasur. So in this way, he's talking about certain parenting, certain parenting, what do you call hints? Some parenting hints, right? So he's saying that there is such a thing as black sheep through bad association. He confirms it is not by being strict. This is not by being strict. Don't do this. Don't do that. That he's going to give a bad association. Just by telling him, don't do this, don't do that. Is he going to give a bad association? No. It is by association of Krishna, a transcendental solution. So he says it's impossible to maintain innocence in boys or girls and from bad association except through service to Krishna. They have a right to be joyful and at the same time take shelter of Krishna, like the cowherd boys in Vrindavan. This wholesome approach, if given in childhood, saves them throughout life. They have a right to be joyful, but at the same time, they should take shelter of Krishna. Shh. Can you keep her quiet, Mataji? She won't let you listen if you're here from here. Okay. Yeah. So the third thing he says is a rotten arrangement by by which a parent thinks that um, by curbing sensuous tendencies in their childhood, one can save them as adults so that they can be responsible enjoyers in their adulthood. So he admonishes parenting with that kind of idea. Some people do that. Another idea that is prevalent nowadays is that strictness can be applied to them by becoming very strong in mind and intelligence. In other words, being a researcher or a scientist, being expert so that they can control material nature. That also he rejected. So he's saying, so there was a reason for sense control in children, but that's not what Bhakti Siddhanta believed. That's not the reason for sense control. So he is very clear and strong about the purpose of life. He said morality is not the purpose of life. So his position on parenting was that the children were entrusted to the parents to guide the soul for the higher purpose of life, and not only on morality. Why? Because it's robbing the soul for the ultimate destination. And even for dharma, he says, the purpose is not material dharma or morality, but the purpose is parodharma. So the purpose is not just piety so that you can enjoy the resources of material nature. He says the purpose is service to Krishna. Why? Because we are robbing the child for his journeying. Please, can you take the child aside, please? Yeah. Okay. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. So it's like robbing the child for the ultimate destination. See, the thing is that we didn't decide that our children are going to be born in our homes. Did we decide that? That our children are going to appear in our homes? We didn't decide. We had no say in that, right? The Bhagavatam says that when the child, especially a child who's a devotee child, when he's in the womb, he's in so much difficulty, right? Worms biting and all that. He's praying to Krishna. I promise you, you take me out of this suffering, and I promise you, I'll never, ever forget you. He's pleading and praying. But what happens when he's outside, when he takes birth? He forgets, right? So it becomes our duty to give him the reminder, to remind the child again and again. He'll keep forgetting, but it's our duty to remind him again and again. You see? And that's why Lord Rishabdev in the 5th canto, he talks like that, right? Don't be a mother, he says. Don't be a father if you cannot take your child. Don't be guru. Don't be demigod also. Don't expect worship from your children if you cannot take them back to Godhead. So it becomes, so our biggest, like Bhakti Siddhanta is saying, our biggest duty is to remind them, is to actually help them in their journey back to Godhead. So in other words, in our homes, they're not perfected souls. They're special souls, but they are not perfected souls. So our duty is to work out the conditioning of the soul in a way that he can go back to Godhead eventually, right? And how do you work out the conditioning of the soul? He comes with his guna and karma, is to provide the resources. So one child is more materialistic, the other child is more spiritual. He's coming with his own karma, right? His guna and karma. So we are simply providing the resources, the facility, the knowledge, the example we are providing them so that he can, advance in Krishna consciousness. That's our duty, that's all. Our duty, as long as we understand that we are servants of Krishna and these are souls being entrusted to us, and we're helping the soul's journey back to Godhead, which is not completed, then parenting actually becomes very easy. It's not difficult. And that's why they come, and because they're coming with the guna and karma, they're going to act out. Sometimes you see they are not behaving properly. It's because they're coming with their guna and karma, right? So they're going to act out. But we remain steady. We know this is their journey. They're coming with their own karma. We didn't control that. We are here simply to guide them back to Godhead. And that becomes our most important duty in life. And that's why Krishna consciousness becomes the foremost duty for a parent. And then, of course, he says the Vedic model used to be the children went to Gurukula at 5 years of age. Because even 50 years ago, influential people in India, they had everything in the world, all the money, everything. They could have brought tutors at home to teach them, right? And that's how homeschooling started in India. It started with people who were very rich, who didn't need to send these kids to school. They just hired tutors, you know. But in the Vedic model used to be, in spite of that, they would send their children to Gurukula because they found the necessity to train them with all these good qualities, character formation, tolerance, mercy, and all that. That used to be the Vedic model. Huh? And then the contemporary model, he says, Bhaktisiddhanta says all this. He says the contemporary model is the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had how many children he had? 9, 10? 9, 10? He said he didn't send them to Gurukula. He homeschooled them. He home educated all of them. So that's the contemporary model. And imagine the type of children he had, right? Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. But one little catch there. He taught them at home, but he made sure that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur took shelter of Gaura Kishordatta. His ultimate success in parenting, when he was really satisfied, is when he took shelter at the lotus feet of his spiritual master. So that's our success in parenting. No matter what model you're doing, it's up to you what you choose. But our success in parenting is are they taking shelter of Guru? And that's why I tell people that before they go to college, make sure that they've taken shelter of Guru. My Guru Maharaj told me that. Yeah. And I was trying to get my children to college within America because it would be closer. And he said that, and there was no association in those universities at that time. And he says, you can't do that. They need association. And that's why I opted to send them so far away to Oxford, because there was a whole bunch of students who came there. They had one apartment where they all lived together, and they cooked food, took turns in cooking prasadam. They had a separate room for a morning program. And these were children from all over the world, Japan, and so many countries, right? But they had association. So that's why it's so important for children. Sometimes we go after Ivy League colleges, big colleges, without realizing, oh, there's no temple there, there's no association there. Yet we send them, thinking, oh, I've given them everything that I need to give them. So that's not a good idea. Maybe for postgraduate level, you can. But for undergrad level, anything would suffice. It's fine. So this is the last one, deity worship. Again, very, very important. Why? Because it trains the children to see Krishna as a person. You know, there's so much impersonalism now in society. Everything has become social media. Is that personal? No, it's the most unsocial thing. Social media is the most unsocial thing. Because it's not about real community, is it? It's a fake world. It's a real world? No, it's a false. A child's life depends on the likes that he gets, right? And who's giving the likes, he doesn't know. Who's tapping that likes and saying, oh, and they can be devastated. Their whole life can be ruined by all this bullying and all this social media thing. It's becoming a very serious problem, right? So in this way, it's the most unsocial thing. So therefore, we have to teach them how to have real community, and that we can see this within Vaishnavas, right? So when they understand Krishna as a person, then they see everybody else as a person. Now we see children who literally, I mean, if you are on social media for too long, you actually become without empathy for others. You don't feel for others. Do you know? This is another problem about social media. If you use that screen too much, you actually don't feel for the sufferings of others. You become, and then you wonder why the kid doesn't care about me, what I'm going through, right? Is because of social media, right? So when we worship deities, it's such a personal thing, right? So they that same kind of personal attitude also they're able to give to other Vaishnavas. Just like a child, when he plays with doll, does he think he's a doll? Do you think he thinks it's a doll? What does he think? It's a real baby, right? When we see a doll, we think, okay, this is a doll, right? When a child sees a doll, he thinks it's a real baby. And that's why it's feeding it, dressing it, right? So, in the same way, when they see deities, they actually see Krishna there. They actually see a person there. So, that's why they are able to connect with Krishna the way we cannot connect. They are able to see Krishna as a person. They actually see that Krishna, and that's why they say things like, "Oh, Krishna, they ask things like, "Is Krishna feeling hot? Is Krishna? Let's put on a fan," because they see Krishna as a person, right? Is Krishna hungry? Should we give him some food? Like that. So that kind of relationship they build. Very, very sweet, very punctual. My children were 3 and 5 years old when we started deity worship. They had 4-inch Gornitai deities. And it's amazing. For 2 hours, we didn't know where it went. They would be so absorbed. You know how children, because they see, Prabhupada said, when children worship deities, they see it as play. And this is what Prabhupada, he talks about, and all the acharyas, they were given Krishna dolls to play, right? Uddhava, Mirabai, all that. And they grew up with that, right? And even Prabhupada, his father gave him Radha Krishna. And he says that they were forms of play for him, but later on they became objects of serious worship, right? Of course, we have to be very careful. So when we have them do that, you're there to correct them, we set boundaries. In other words, okay, you're going to do this. Did you wash your hands? Hmm. So I was with them, and sometimes it becomes challenging. They drop things and they test your patience. It's not an easy thing, right? But then you see the absorption they have. So they're going to play. They're going to play. What do they play with? Hmm. So when children associate with Krishna, it's actually Krishna is there. Why? Hmm? Krishna is absolute. When children read about great devotees in the Bhagavatam, they're actually associating with them. And that's why they make quick advancement. Because Krishna is absolute. That's why it's so purifying. That's why it's the higher intelligence that they develop. And they're able to give up the lower intelligence because it's so purifying. Right? Okay, so this is the deity worship. Okay, so now we'll open it for questions. If anybody has any questions in this early part, these are very quick slides about the early years. Krishna consciousness begins very early in life, even when they're infants, surrounding them with environment of Krishna consciousness, dovetailing the desire to play, all that. Anybody has any questions here?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Morning sadhana is not only parent and children also, you told. But after this Mangalarati, we sit for japa. But children, how they behave?
Yes. That was the part I skipped. You kind of brought me back. Yeah, japa, Prabhupada has spoken a lot about japa for children. He didn't want japa to be seen as punishment or as a reward. Punishment means we don't do it negatively. In other words, we don't say, "You've been a bad boy today, so now you sit down and chant 2 rounds." So what is the impression that a child gets? Japa is horrible. This is my punishment. I didn't behave properly. This is okay. So this is very, very important. And Prabhupada, in one of his quotes, he actually chastised a child, a teacher, why he was doing this way, And he also, Prabhupada was so keen on children getting the feel of japa, is that one time the children had beads, and he found out that all the beads were taken away by the teacher because children were disrespecting the beads. And Prabhupada got really angry and he said, "What? You have to teach them how to respect the beads, not that you take the beads away." He was very particular. He wanted children to have beads, but they should be taught how to respect the beads. Okay. So, and then also it shouldn't be used as a reward. You've been a good boy, you've chanted 2 rounds, here's an ice cream. Okay. At least it's a little bit better than punishment, right? So this is something. So you want to give your children very, very positive experience about japa. And the way to do it is to have gatherings, make it a very positive experience. Chant with them, first of all. Don't let them chant themselves. Have their peers come and chant together. What we used to do every Ekadashi, we sat down together and we chanted together, parents and children. And they were very inspired because they had their friends there. So you can do something like that. We also had a japathon on New Year's Eve where we chanted one name for every citizen of Idaho, where we came from. One name for every citizen. So if there's 2.5 million people, you chant that many names. So children got so inspired. And we had a big board where we would write the score. So the children would see how much the score is and everything. They got so inspired. Some children are chanting 40 rounds, some 64 rounds. Just so something to make it positive, something to inspire them. The chanting is so nice, you know. So make it a very positive experience. Okay. And even though, and if you force them, they will chant, but they won't do it. They'll check out later on.
Yes, Mataji, but you told that okay for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, even 5 days, 1 week. Then for continue, children getting irritating.
Yeah. Again, the all three have to come together. Shastra, very important. Shastra and morning sadhana, flexible but there, and then the prachar, the preaching. All three have to be there, and then it all comes together.
Because we have to complete our
Oh
morning
yeah,
rounds, and as well as we don't want to talk in between, and we have to concentrate. But they will complete 2 rounds. After that, what will they do? We are watching, but we are going on in our japa.
yeah.
So it is, how to maintain.
Yes, Prabhu, you have to find a way by which you can chant, um, because children, if they feel like that's taking time away from me because parents have japa to do, they feel resentful. That's another problem. So you have to find a nice balance where you can chant, in a way that children are engaged also. You see, you have to find enough engagement for the children while you're chanting japa. Mm. Okay, so they're not feeling like they're not on their phones. Yeah. Or you do 4 4 4 4, like different times of the day, if it's impossible, especially mothers with small children. It's very difficult for them to sit in one go and do all at once. Okay, Prabhu. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for this very wonderful seminar. It's really inspiring. And I actually have a couple of questions. The first is you mentioned something that, when push comes to shove, then they experience bad moments in their life, those scars and all that. And the one thing that will save them is that divine power you said. So how can we make sure that they get how to tap into it, how to bring that power and all. I mean, I'm just trying to understand how to make it happen at that point when things get bad, how to make it come back, how to make the kids come back?
Well, all it means is engaging them in different activities of Krishna consciousness. Be very creative and find ways to engage them. That's all it means. Giving them the spiritual samskaras, which means engaging them, the mind, in the Krishna conscious activities. And you can find whatever natural tendency your child has to engage according to that. If he has more tendency for example, a child loves music, he only wants to do kirtan. Okay, so there's so much philosophy in our Vaishnava songs, right? So they practice the Vaishnava songs and they study the philosophy behind that. Narottam Das Thakur's and all these great acharyas, their songs are so profound, you know. So they can study shastras like that, that okay, we're gonna sing bhajans and then he can perform everywhere and he feels good, right? Because when people clap for him, he feels very encouraged, right? So in other words, find different ways by which they can engage. In other words, try to dovetail everything in Krishna consciousness. That's the main thing. It's not like things are restricted for devotees. We also go on vacation. We also have fun. Children need that fun, right? But our consciousness is different, right? You're going on a vacation, you're going for some Rath Yatra or something, and you have a couple of days travel or something, then you're staying in a hotel. Well, our mood is different. We take a little, cooker, we cook khichdi in it, we offer it, we eat that, we do a little morning program when we wake up in the hotel. Just change your consciousness. Do everything what the children want, because otherwise they feel left out, right? But our consciousness should be different. Okay, we plan for a Rath Yatra, and along the way, if there's a Disney, some kind of children's entertainment like Disneyland over there, then we stop over there. We can stop over there. But our goal is Rath Yatra. By the way, when my children went to Disneyland, because they never grew up with Mickey Mouses, right? They were so bored there. You won't believe that. Because they could not, they didn't, Mickey Mouse, they knew about Mickey Mouse, but they never grew up with that, right? They said never again Disney World, because any event activity that was happening, there was huge lines. First of all, you had to wait in the line. What to see Mickey Mouse, So children develop a higher taste anyway. But yeah, you're curious. You want to know because all the other kids are going. Okay, we take them. We take them. But our goal is Rath Yatra. This is where we are going. So the children understand. Okay, like for vacation we used to go for Braj Mandal Parikram. People do all kinds of things. They go here, there. We went for Braj Mandal. And it's such an exciting way for children to have fun. My children would say it's a transcendental boot camp. Imagine walking 20 kilometers a day, sleeping under tents, being rationed with one bucket of water. It's really amazing, right? Getting sore feet walking, right? Jumping in the kundas after your long walk, impromptu dramas, beautiful kathas, non-stop kirtan. I mean, Krishna book becomes alive, right? Prabhupada has given us so much. We don't have to worry that children are feeling left out. It's better out there. What's better out there? How do they engage their children, The most, they sit behind, in front of a TV, they all watch TV together, right? That's family time. For us, we should think outside the box, okay, if this is not part of the picture, this screen time, so what else can we do? So many things. Okay, anything else? Okay, over there. Yeah.
How can we increase patience growing of the children? We use every time like work for 8 hours, company their path. Again, we will come back home and we will see like, okay, now I have to take care of my children. I need to get patience. So how can we increase?
Prabhupada, are you reading Srila Prabhupada's books? Okay, you need to read Srila Prabhupada's books. It really makes a difference. There was one child who had such a temper problem, such horrible temper problem, and parents were just like the sweetest, the most humblest devotees. And they didn't know where this came from. Of course, he brought it from his last life. And they asked me, they said, what to do? And I said, read Bhagavatam with him every day, every day. And they did that. And there's no anger problem left. You develop, your anger is resolved, your patience, you become patient, you know. So that comes with the, following the process. Like I just mentioned, morning program, reading Shastra every day. And you can do that with your children. So you'll develop a lot of patience, okay? Mm. Louder, just speak louder.
Hare Krishna. Mataji, is the mother's role is pretty important in all these responsibilities because sometimes it may be seen that the mother has to do all the household chores alone. So sometimes it may be overloaded for her to balancing all the household chores and make time to her child to ensure that he or she may be Krishna conscious, as you suggested. No? So how to balance and make the role clearly, how to make.
Mm. Well, it's just a mutual understanding, between the husband and wife, so that we share, you know, I mean, the husband is, if you're not going to work and he's going to work, then obviously a lot of time is taken in that job, If you both are working, obviously, then you have to share, because you both are working, right? So it depends on your situation and how you can manage that. I I mean, I had to homeschool them pretty much alone because my husband had a job which took like 10 hours a day. And then plus he was managing the whole temple. So much was going on. So I just, you know, uh, so in other words, it's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice, but it's well worth it. Mm. Like for example, the prasadam thing. I remember I was in Riga, Latvia, in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and I was staying with this family, and she was telling me that a 14-year-old son, he one day he just ran away from school. He's a devotee child. She's raising him nicely. He just ran away. He was going to school. He got influenced by some other children, and he ran away from home. And she was so worried. And for months he didn't come back. Then one day he came back. And you know why? The reason why he came back? Because he was missing his mother's cooking. So this is how glorious a mother's job is. It's very glorious. That's the only reason he came back. He couldn't bear the fact that she's a wonderful cook, and the prasadam was so brought him back. You see, everything that we do, and Suniti, you see that? She had a husband who didn't even support her, right? But she became so glorious just by directing the child. So whatever you're doing, it's very glorious. But of course, there should be some sharing. It is important because it takes two people. It takes a whole village to raise a child. What about just, two people? The whole community has to be with each other, right? To raise a child. So definitely there should be some balance there. So you get your breaks, definitely. Yeah. But sometimes life doesn't bring like that. It's just that's how material life is. It may not happen like that. But this is the proper thing. Yeah, totally agree.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah.
Say in a family, only one parent is Krishna conscious. The rest of them are not. So what exactly should be done to raise them in a Krishna conscious way?
Yeah. How many children do you have?
One.
Just one?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say, in Boise, we had across the street that we had an American family, and she had 5 children, and the husband was not a devotee. But he couldn't get anywhere because there was an army against him. 5 children plus mother. When they wanted to do something, he had. So anyway, he gave in. He said, okay, I'm not going to be a devotee, but I promise you I'm not going to cook meat or eat meat. I'm going to eat meat only outside. And he left her free to practice deity. She would do deity worship with them. She practiced the whole thing. Got initiated. The children got initiated. And this was in a home where everything was against her. And my Guru Maharaj told her that, you have to serve your husband, you have to, do everything. You need him, you know. Anyway, so we serve each other. It's not like, it's the husband also serves the wife in many different ways. So what I'm saying is that Krishna consciousness is not bound by anything material. You can always find a way. You can always find a way. Okay. When there's a will, there's a way. Okay. How much time is it?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
6:50.
Hare Krishna,
Yes.
I guess. So Mataji, as long as they are small, it's fine. So,
I know.
but you were mentioning that how, if it is possible, before they leave the house for college, it's good if they can take shelter. In case it has not happened,
Yes.
and you've tried your best to inculcate whatever you could do possibly to give them Krishna consciousness. And you feel in a way that, yes, you have succeeded to some extent. But the moment they step out of that zone of yours, Krishna's protection, they are outside and they are, as you were mentioning, hormones are there and the association is there. So when all those protection shield is down and you see the child changing, not probably, I will not say in a negative way, the value systems are still there, but then the so much of Krishna consciousness is not there.
Mhm.
So again, you were also mentioning that you can continue to think them that they are a soul, and you just need to advise them and guide them back to Godhead. You were just mentioning, which is a big relief. Yes, but then as a mother, how do you make sure that the child still remains some way Krishna conscious?
Mhm. Oh, definitely. The duty, our duty, and that's what you're concerned with. A duty toward for a parent towards the child always remains, no matter which way he goes. We still feel very responsible for what he does, and so in the only way is that obviously we're not the controllers, right? We've done our best, and we can control what's going to happen next, right? But rest assured, if you've given him good sanskaras, okay, rest assured he's going to come back. She or he's going to come back. Because Krishna, when we raise them in Krishna consciousness and then they get distracted, Krishna, plants certain hooks in us. And you don't know when he's going to pull that hook towards him. So there comes a time in their life when they can just turn towards Krishna, right? In the meantime, we try to do our best in whichever way we can. And there's different ways to try. Of course, if they're already gone and they're married, it's a different situation. But if they're out there just studying, yeah. So linking them to devotees and trying to, get them to find their own association. There comes a time in children's life where they're influenced more with their peers rather than us, right? To finding that facility, those resources for him also helps, you know. I know one parent was feeling like that for her children very much, like you're feeling, and also her husband. He wasn't really in Krishna consciousness, but she somehow came into Krishna consciousness. She started this book reading with them, and she was asking me what books to read with them, where it's not overpowering. So some bridge books and all that, and we were discussing that. So she would go online with all of them once a week, and they would have these small books. I think Essence. Anybody has seen that book? I think um, Keshav Swami has written some bridge books and things. So those books are very nice. And so she started reading with them, and it's miraculous. In other words, they started taking interest, and they had so many questions because it's not in a way where it's overpowering them, but rather in a way that they feel comfortable. And every week they meet online, and they just to please their mother, they will do it. It starts out like that, just pleasing somebody, pleasing the mother, but it develops into an attraction. And suddenly the husband is getting attracted, the children are getting attracted, and then now she's looking for another book. Then she took a little break with them, making sure that everything is not overpowering. took a little couple of weeks break, then started again. So you have to try think of different ways. Okay, that may be one good idea. Yes.
Hare
Should-
Krishna Mataji.
Mm.
We seen, like you said, your kids were now nearly some 20 plus something, and you raised them that way. But now the era is of
Yeah.
like mobile and the TVs and social medias and everything. Give us some practical tips how you engage them daily activities. Like morning program is fine. Suppose that how daily you engaged them in some service or how, because to shut up the child now, the people are giving the mobiles.
Yeah, that's what is so disheartening among parents because they don't know how to engage the children, and they think this if I don't give them the phones, how will I get my peace of mind? Or forget our peace of mind. This, in other words, when we engage with our children, we engage with them. So a parent has invested so much in the children, right? When you engage with them, you feel very and happy and entertained yourself, right? These are our children, so we engage them. We also engage in their activities, right? So practical things are like festivals. Every day is a festival, right? In Krishna consciousness, right? Engaging in festivals, celebrate your festivals in the grandest style. If you cannot come to the temple, right? If you can come to the temple, great. Do dramas here and so many things. Engage your children in different things. Okay, today is Janmashtami. We used to take advantage of every little thing that came up. This is my way of engaging them. Like, for example, the appearance and disappearance days of acharyas also was celebrated with my children. That day, all regular homeschooling was stopped. We would study about the acharyas. We would cook a feast. The whole unit would be like that, you know. So like that, you can engage. Okay, is he going to school, right? You don't have child?
About to be there.
Oh, great. That's even better to learn before that. Yeah. You're smart. You're very intelligent. In Denmark, I was in Denmark, there was one brahmachari who happened to come for the seminar. He said, I'm going to get married. I need to get married. This is so wonderful to raise children like that. And I said, oh, you're going to get me into trouble here. You're going to get me into trouble. And it's a very strong temple. I mean, every morning at Mangal Arati, you see all these people jumping up and down. There's like full with brahmacharis. And I got a little nervous. Like, I'm not here for that. So in other words, it's very attractive, right? When you raise children like that, it becomes very attractive. You want to have children, right? You want to bring a soul into this world who can be like that, right? Yeah. So there's many ways you can engage. Festivals is one good way. Okay. Yeah. Mhm.
One more question, Mataji. You said about association, right? So when we are in my work location is Chennai, like we are here. Like we'll come to temple and we associate mostly with the devotees and everything is okay. When we go to our native means we
Yeah.
are only practicing. How we the kids, grandchildren and the uncles and aunts and everyone are not Krishna consciousness. They used to get good thinking to the child, they used to give mobiles and you eat some sweets, so
Okay.
that how to avoid those things.
So if you give them a higher taste at home, here, when they go there, they actually get a bit bored if all they're doing is watching television shows, because you've given them the higher taste. They actually don't. I mean, curiosity is there, but it's not like that. And first, we have to follow the parampara, right? Grandparents are there, but the first parent is you, right? So in other words, you can't bypass them. I hear this all this time. I had to give in because my parents didn't agree, and so I have to surrender to that. But we have to respect them. We have to get their wisdom. The wisdom that they have is so valuable. But if it's going the other wrong way, then we have to do something, right? And it's very hard because if the husband doesn't agree or something like that, it's not an easy thing. But basically, it's that. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji.
Oh, there's a lot of questions. I think I'm going to go ahead with my second part. And then please write down your questions. Should we keep on going like this? Or should we go to the next part? Okay, okay, let's, yeah. Yes, sir. Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes.
So it's about the bad association they get in the school. They have some idea about what's right and what's wrong. And then every day it changes when they come back saying, oh, the kids said this and that. And it is every day it is, unlearning and relearning. So is this the normal way or you have any
No, it's a
ideas?
very, yeah, this thing has to, every day when children come back from school, you should sit down with them and talk to them, right? Now it's very difficult. They actually, when they're teenagers, they actually clamp down. The problem is you don't get anywhere. They won't tell you what's going on in school. Because first of all, there's a huge generation gap. First of all, because they have their own life. You know how big the gap is nowadays, even among devotees, because they don't relate with us. They have their own music, they have their own dress, they have their own food. They don't relate with adults anymore nowadays, the way society is going on, right? They're the whole different species, their own species, right? So how to bridge that gap? How to have, and that's why they clamp down, huh? Because they don't think you will understand what it is. They're least interested in sharing with you. And that's where the danger is when they don't share, right? The way to do it is by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, which I'm going to be talking in next, because when we read Srimad Bhagavatam with children, then they open up, because this is the nature of Bhagavatam. It draws out realizations and your experiences. You want to share, because it's not about you, it's about somebody else, some very inspiring people out there, in the books. You see, so this is the way to, remove that communication gap, the generation gap that we've developed in our children, Okay. Okay. I know there were more hands there, but let's go on, and then later on, if we have time, we can. So this is the second part about reading Srimad Bhagavatam, our academic curriculum. These are very nice quotes by Srila Prabhupada. Our students specifically, they should take care of reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We have therefore prescribed in our school dallas. And from the very beginning, if they begin education with Bhagavad Gita and then come to Srimad Bhagavatam and read the whole literature, then they will be more than MA, PhD. Even astronomy, astrology, politics, sociology, atomic theory, everything is there. Therefore, if you study Srimad Bhagavatam very carefully, then you get all knowledge completely. Throughout the whole world, whatever knowledge is there is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. If one simply reads the Srimad Bhagavatam, his education is the topmost. If one studies Srimad Bhagavatam, he's well versed in several subject matters, in every subject matter. So you can see these are very small fraction of the quotes Srila Prabhupada has spoken about the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam in our lives, in our children's lives. And he's saying that how it's more than MA, PhD. And I had a direct experience of that. And not that I went into it knowing that this is going to happen. Like I told you, I was reading it for the first time myself when my children were reading it with me. Okay. So, but then later on, I realized the miracle that what Prabhupada is saying is so true. Because in 6 years of them reading Srimad Bhagavatam, they went to college very early. And that's why they graduated so early, right? They went to college at 12. Now, this was just by accident. I mean, this is the last thing I would recommend. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that to anybody because, it's very challenging, right? But it just so happened with me. We were running a restaurant, and there was this head of this English department at the local university. He used to come and eat at the restaurant. We used to running the Govinda's restaurant. And he noticed how the children were speaking very fluently, using very good, nice words. The language was very good. And then he said, I'm thinking, why don't you put your children and give them a class at the university level? Really? He's only 12. He said, no, no, no. And I thought, well, that's not a bad idea if it can happen. because, I was doing so many things. Just if you know what it means to run a temple and a center, my husband was at work, so much work. I didn't even have a moment to do anything different. Anyway, so he said, and I said, okay, let's try this out. And he said, go to the dean and get special permission. So I went to the dean and he said, he was mostly, and of course, my son took a placement exam. They have a placement exam, which qualifies you to go in or at least enter at the first step. And he took an English placement exam and he scored in the 90s because 94, 95%. So because why English language arts was his strength through the Bhagavatam, right? So the dean said, yes, I can see that he did really well. But I'm really concerned about his emotional maturity, with having students that are so much older, 6 years older or 8 years older than him. I'm concerned with that. And he said, okay, well, if the class teacher agrees, he can take one class, an English composition class. I went to the class teacher and she agreed, actually, miraculously, she agreed. She says, okay, we can try. But the funny thing is that all the lower level classes were full. The 101 was full, the 102 was full. And I was thinking, I told that Dr. Sahani, who came to the restaurant, I said, they're all full. He says, no, 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 no. Ask him to try for the honors class. I said, honors class? He said, yeah, honors class. Even that wasn't, the first level honors class was full. He said, try for the second level. I said, really? And then I tried they had a few seats left. He said, let him go for that. And you can imagine how shocking it was. A young child, 12-year-old child, walking into a classroom with no idea what to expect, right? And you know what the syllabus was? Shakespeare, classical writers. Shakespeare, he had never studied Shakespeare in his life. Classical Mexican writers, Homer's Odyssey and all that. And he didn't know what to make of it. But as he started reading those books, it started started making sense. Because after reading the Bhagavatam, Shakespeare is not a problem at all, right? What is this? And he started, and what was amazing, why the teacher was so impressed, she said, while the other children were trying to get to the plot line and the storyline, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened after that, this kid was going deep into it, trying to go deep into the Shakespeare and trying to answer questions like, what is Shakespeare's view of the world and this and that? And she was shocked. He says, he's so analytical, he's going deep in. And that's the training what Bhagavatam gives us. Every psychological situation in the world. All of you must have read Bhagavatam, right? To some extent. Everything, you see so many different types of mentalities there. Suruchi's enviousness, Suniti's enviousness, Suniti's, chastity. No, it's very ordinary to you, right? The material clutter and all that contamination. They don't have that. So they are very clean at heart, they're innocent, but at the same time, they have a lot of depth, a lot of emotional maturity. Just like Prahlad, when he was in the womb of his mother, right? He was hearing a Bhagavatam class every day of his life from Narad Muni. How was he able to understand such deep topics about Grahastha life? Right? All these things. Because he was hearing Bhagavatam class every day. It gives that emotional maturity, right? So what I'm saying is that our children, and that is why they do well in the world out there. Because Bhagavatam is all about the nature of this material world. Most of the Krishna book, so much of the Krishna book Prabhupada wrote, is all about the sufferings of this material world. You would think it would be all about Krishna's pastimes only. Because Prabhupada understood, unless you understand the sufferings of this material world, how can you be attracted to Krishna? Right? So this is what Bhagavatam gives us. It makes our children understand the nature of this material world, what to expect, and they don't have to experience it to understand that. Do you have to experience? No, you experience it through Shruti, through the process of hearing. You know how powerful that is? When you hear Bhagavatam, which is totally pure transcendental literature, when you hear, you actually can feel it, you can actually experience it. And that is why Prahlad could actually experience the sufferings of this material world. And he could tell his father in such a straightforward way. Because when you hear Shastra, you actually experience it. You don't need to go out there and experience it. Because parents ask me, if you're going to keep your children so sheltered, what's going to happen, when they actually go into the world? Well, they won't want to experience. Maybe once in a while they may experience and learn their lesson, right? And get distracted a little bit, But it's not going to be anything heavy, You see? So let them experience material life through Shastra. It's a much easier and nicer way to understand Shastra, to understand the nature of this material life. And therefore they become very emotionally mature. Hmm? And you see that. You see, everybody is so attracted to child saints, right? Aruddha and Prahlad, right? They're so attractive. When children speak philosophy, it's very, very attractive, right? My oldest son was in college, in undergrad, in a philosophy class. His teacher was an atheist. He was Mayavadi totally, and very senior teacher. Anyway, they would, he would, and the wonderful thing about reading Bhagavatam is that children, they're so open and excited about doing mundane subjects. You would think that somebody studying Bhagavatam is just not going to be interested in material things because he's just grown up, right? That's why people argue, say it's not practical. But it's just the opposite. It actually gives you motivation to learn about things out there because you see the purpose behind it. You see, there's a purpose behind everything material you study. You can use it in your preaching. You can serve Krishna through your material education. You're raising them like that. You're dovetailing everything. Remember the vacation and all that? You're dovetailing everything. Everything is being dovetailed to Krishna. You see? So therefore, they don't feel, they feel very motivated to excel and to do well in college. So anyway, this teacher, they would have, sometimes they would have a few, arguments, not arguments, differences of opinion, and all that, but on the side, not during classroom and all that. He knew that this kid is a Hare Krishna. He knew that, And so, but he knew that this kid was okay, was good, was special. Anyway, but so they had different opinions and all that. And then one day, he found out he had cancer. And he was actually in such a bad state, he was dying. He was in the hospital, and very selected people could go and see him. Hmm? And he had to decide. He would say, "Okay, I want to see so and so." And he called for my son, a student, right? And he said, and then he came to his bedside, and he was dying, right? And he says, Ravi, Ravi is his name, right? Ravi, I've been thinking about your Krishna. I've been thinking a lot about your Krishna. The senior teacher was attracted to my son because of something else there, right? And there was another teacher who said, I like your kids because, they don't base their success on somebody else's failure. He would get, there were other students and he could sense that or some way or the other. So it's just this character thing that I'm talking about. Is that what attracts people? Because what Prabhupada said that we want to raise gentlemen and gentlewomen, right? This is what attractive about devotees and our children, And this is what we want to do. Not that they're like super people, or anything like that. That's not what we are trying to do here. So it is master's level, it is PhD level. Like I said, you could get there. And and that's why I had this slide here where we did only 5 hours. In our school, there was only 5 hours: reading, writing, arithmetic, raga, and rota. Wrote. Okay. So in other words, when you homeschool in India, they have a institute called, it's a government institute called the NIOS, National Institute of Open Homeschooling. For that, till the 8th grade, nothing is required. You can teach them whatever way you want to. And starting 8th grade, then there's board exam. At 8th grade, then at 10th grade, and 12th grade. And then at 12th grade, you enter college. And colleges are required to put your kids in whatever college they want to. They're required, I mean, it's open for them. Anyway, so this is something like what we did. In other words, the early years, they didn't do every subject in the world that we have in school today. So English language arts was through the Bhagavatam, which means comprehension, spelling, English, whatever, all the language arts they did from the Bhagavatam. So language arts is becomes the basis for all humanity subjects. You know what humanities are? History, geography, and all that. These are called humanities. Liberal arts, we call it, right? Everybody understands? So language arts, if you give them strong language arts skills, that becomes the basis for all humanities. They can study any humanities subject, any liberal arts subjects without any problem. Okay, which means